You already know what to do, but for the third week in a row, that critical task your business need is still untouched. You've told yourself that you are too busy, but deep down, you and I both know that you are avoiding it because it feels too hard, because you don't feel ready, because you fear messing it up. The problem is that you keep waiting, you'll eventually develop the identity of someone who almost starts the right thing, which is literally the opposite identity you need if you ever want to have a chance to get the financial freedom you secretly deserve. The best skill in business is not sales or marketing, is execution, is learning how to do the right thing every single day without getting distracted or doubtful. This is the skill that makes elite founders elite. It's not how much marketing they know, what is their offer, it's how consistently they can execute on what they know. For you to become an incredible operator, you must train your mind for it. And if you don't want to figure this out on your own over many years or decades, you can book a decoding session below. We're going to run you through an analysis to pinpoint the exact cause of you being stuck and give you a proven roadmap to scale yourself. Book your decoding session below. I'm Leon Castillo, founder, investor, and coach to a few hundred elite founders. Now, in the past 8 years, I've helped hundreds scale by mastering the most important skill they need: the ability to control their own mind, to execute consistently. Because in a world where 90% of businesses fail within the first 10 years and only 1.1% of businesses ever scale past 6 figures, the difference between winner and loser is not strategy, because anyone can Google the right strategy or ask ChatGPT about it. It's not IQ. You are already smart enough to make millions. And it's definitely not work ethic. You are working too hard already. The difference is the ability to execute consistently, day in and day out. Staying calm, focused, and consistent long enough to finish what matters without falling for procrastination, overwhelm, or the endless stream of distractions that are coming at you. Without mastering execution, success is impossible and work is a pain. You wake up late because you were scrolling through social media until 1 a.m. You burn your first 90 minutes of your day, your cognitive prime, putting out Slack fires. By 3 p.m., you're doing busy work that feels productive but isn't, because the real project is heavy. And you tell yourself, tomorrow I'll start fresh, but tomorrow is just a copy-paste of today. And before long, you've normalized wasting most of the day. And in a minute, I'm gonna give you the 3-step process that turn this loop of doom into momentum. But first, you need to understand what is the hidden fight you're losing every day. The difference between average and elite founders is how they handle mental friction, the gap between what you consciously want to do and what you subconsciously feel you're able to do. Psychologists call this subconscious resistance, and neuroscientists call it limbic friction. You felt it. Every time you need to do a cold call and you hover over the number, you freeze, and your brain starts serving you excuses. Maybe I should research more, I should prep more, maybe tomorrow is better timing. That is not logical thinking. That is your brain tagging that task as a threat. And in nature, that kept you alive. But in business, that keeps you stuck. Mastering the gap between what you want to do and what you feel like doing is the ultimate sign of mental mastery and the true difference between winners and losers. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, Viktor Frankl, the psychologist who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and many others have alluded to this gap as the source of freedom. Yet no one ever told you it was important or how to master it. Because when you don't master this gap, everything is hard. You default to easy work instead of important work. You avoid friction, pain, and hard conversation. You leave open loops in your mind that drain your mental RAM. And this makes consistency impossible. But once you learn how to master this gap, you lean into the hard stuff. You tolerate pain for a bigger purpose, and you close every loop you open. Over time, that compounds into psychological momentum, the kind most founders never feel. If you get this wrong, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how much you work, you will fail. But if you get this right, I can guarantee that you will always figure out what needs to happen and execute on what matters to become successful. The first step to scientifically get ahead of 99% of people is to define with precision what you want. Most founders lose before they even started because they can't tell you without blinking the exact target and 3 actions they need to take every day to hit it. And if your goal is a vague bumper sticker like I want to be successful, your brain has nothing to aim at. You think you're hustling, but you're running in circles. You need clear goals because your brain is a prediction machine. The prefrontal cortex, the executive control center, needs a specific target to filter the flood of sensory input hitting you every second. This is where something called the RAS, reticular activating system, which is the brain attentional gatekeeper, comes in. If your target is vague, the RAS lets everything in, distractions, shiny objects, which floods your decision-making circuits, and it leads to decision fatigue. But when you have a clear and measurable goal, the RAS goes on hunt mode. It changes what you notice. It suddenly filters in opportunities, and you start aligning thoughts, emotions, and behaviors towards the thing you absolutely need to do in order to get where you want to go. Elite founders make detailed decisions and commit with the same intensity as if their life depending on it, because that is a function of the clarity they have by choosing the target. Then step number 2 is to design specific systems to get the target. See, even with a clear target, most founders blow it up here because they wing it. But weeks later, they're drowning in tasks, momentum is gone, and they're back in the loop. See, your working memory, your brain mental RAM is tiny, and there's cognitive research that tells us that you can pretty much judge 4 chunks of information at any given moment. So if every plan lives in your head, you waste precious resources remembering what to do next instead of executing. And that mental clutter slows reaction time and increases stress. That's when you feel busy all day but end the week with nothing meaningful shipped. There's a better way. Elite performers offload the plan into external systems, KPI, lead indicators, and kill criteria for bad ideas, because their working memory is designed to help them with execution, not for storing irrelevant information. They also use something called implementation intentions, which is if-then relationship with tasks that streamlines their behavior. So for instance, they say, if it's 9 a.m., I'm going to be working on the most important task. If it's right after lunch, I'm going to be taking this short break to recover. This if-then relationship, called implementation intentions, let them be more effective with their decision making. And they also do visualization, which is priming the motor and decision-making circuits by rehearsing the steps before acting. See, when you visualize something, you have already flown the mission in your head. You already have done the task. So when the time comes, your brain doesn't process it as a threat, but as familiar, right? Nikola Tesla built entire machine in his head before touching a tool. So you can't flow into elite performance if your mind is clogged with logistics. You have to map it, you have to simulate it, and when the time comes, you have to execute it without distractions. And if you do this the right way, you eventually do it perfectly, because neurologically you have already done it hundreds of times, as many as you have visualized the task. And then step 3, and this is where 99% quit, and it's usually right when it starts working. See, you felt it, the hesitation before making the call, sending the proposal, stepping into the hard conversation. You tell yourself you'll do it later, and later becomes never. That is a moment in which you feel the limbic friction, the push-pull between your prefrontal cortex and your limbic system. That limbic system job is to preserve energy, especially when the task feels uncertain. This is a killer for dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that drives motivation. It makes the task heavier and less rewarding. The problem is that you back off here, your brain learns to avoid the task and ends up linking avoidance with reducing discomfort, which through neuroplasticity, it creates the wrong association in the brain. You have to create the right association, which is every time things get hard, that is a go sign. This is the moment in which you need to lean into that discomfort to rewire your own natural response towards the task. This is how elite performers expand their comfort zone over time, because they're able to take on more and more challenges without backing off. They've trained the nervous system to move before the limbic system can run the avoidant script. And this is how you scientifically get ahead of 99% of people, by deciding with precision what you want, by narrowing the path, and by executing consistently and letting go of the resistance every time it arises. This is how you win. It's not about how hard you work, it's not about how smart you are, it's not even about how good your offer is. It's about how consistently you can execute on what matters. Once you master this, you'll be operating in a category that most never touch, and this will be your ultimate edge. This is the most important thing you can do for your success, so start now. Train your brain to win, because nothing else will come close to give you the odds you want of becoming successful.